You're live.
I'm live because it says live up there, or because we actually turned it on? Which one? Well, hello everyone. It is 12:01. I want you to know I was 10 minutes early today. I was 10 minutes early today. I didn't touch anything, but I was here where I was supposed to be. So, because I was looking forward to this conversation today. So, this is another session of Chat with the Chief. We'll do a session today at noon, and then we'll do another session at 6 this evening. Jamie will be here helping me as we talk about some things that are going on, things that are upcoming, and then taking any questions that you all may have as we move forward here. I cannot believe that we're in mid-March. And it just seems like we were doing Thanksgiving last week, and we're already in mid-March. So the year is flying by. I've certainly seen a lot in the last year. We'll probably touch base on some of those things. But I appreciate you tuning in. And so if you're there, if somebody would do me a favor and send me a message fairly quickly and let me know that it's the coming through okay. Um, I had them look just I had them dim the lights a little bit to remove some of this shine that I had here, so it wouldn't be too hard to look at. But I appreciate those that mark on when we do this. Cameron, thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. There we go. So, yeah, any questions you have, please send through. We'll be taking notes. Like I said, Jamie's here to help me. If I miss any, I try to hit every question that comes in, but I do miss some. So if I do, Fran, thank you for being here. I appreciate that. If I miss some, we will go back afterwards, and I'll make sure that we respond or send something out to you. But I really do my best to try to hit every comment or question that comes in. So, Kathy, thank you for being here. Thank you, Kathy. Somebody let me know I was doing the right thing. Act like I know what I'm doing. But like I said, we'll do this at 12. We'll get at 6. And the reason we have these conversations is not to beat a dead horse, but with technology, uh, we've been doing these for a little over almost 2 years now, and I believe it's a way to reach the community. I think it's important that you understand and have knowledge about what's going on. And Dee Dee, thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Thank you that you have knowledge and that we're open and transparent. Um, I'll try to be as open and transparent as I can. If we get some issues, questions about a case, uh, 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 I won't be able to go in too much into a case, but I'll try to be open and transparent about what we're doing. We've had questions about recruiting. We've had questions about retention. We've had questions about what's the direction, how are things going. So, Gary, appreciate you being here. Thank you, my friend. Um, but a lot of good things that we have going in the department. So if you're unable to watch today and you watch it at another time, I want to say thank you. I know it's hard with hustle and bustle, and one of the things I wanted to talk about today is school being back in. Right, we had our first full week of school with elementary, middle, and high school. The SROs are back in the field, so I'm glad. I wanted to get some feedback of how that was going. I think Dr. Park and the school system have worked really hard to do the best they can for attendance and making sure things are safe. I appreciate the teachers that are back in. My mom was in education for 30 years. She taught third grade. I got to see her a couple months ago, and I asked her about it. Did she enjoy retirement? And she said, I enjoy retirement, but I miss the kids. So I think teachers have a tremendous impact on young people and our youth, and it was pretty cool.
What Cameron says.
Cameron, so you're supposed to be in school, and okay, hey, Cameron, I'm learning a little bit of technology. Nobody will know. It's okay. It's all good. But I totally get it. I appreciate you being here, buddy. Um, Gary, hey Chief, folks are using phones more when they drive now than ever before. What's the crackdown on that like? So, Gary, I'll tell you, I know times are hard right now with this pandemic and people are out of work and restrictions, and I understand the safety. So, officers are doing traffic stops, but we're for if issues or individuals are using their phone, but it's kind of a warning to talk about awareness. I'm not trying to make things harder on individuals. We certainly don't want people to be in accidents and be hurt, but we're trying to pass awareness. It's kind of like when people would get together in the pandemic, we didn't have to really arrest anyone or charge anyone for getting together and too many people around. It was just reminding individuals to take ownership, be safe, and it seemed to work out. So that's kind of what we're focusing on right now, is an awareness. And it's funny that you bring up phones, because when I was talking about with schools, this year we have a new campaign. We have cameras on our buses. The biggest asset, the best asset that we have are the youth, right? Our children, youth of this city. And so the cameras now, for safety, and I will tell you, just in February, there were like 250 violations. Now, we didn't ticket for those. We did some warnings, but tickets starts the month of March. But I will tell you, there were 250 violations of vehicles passing school buses while kids were getting on. So when that stop arm, right, the stop sign comes out and the bar comes out, when you get on the bus, you're supposed to stop in both directions and make sure that the children get on and get off the bus. 250 violations of cars just zooming past those cameras. So what happens is, just like cameras at some intersections, it captures the license plate, and then we assess that, and then we validate, yes, someone did run past the bus. We see that on our surveillance from an office, and then the company will issue a citation for that offense. And it is an expensive offense, but it's one of the things we really try to crack down on, is individuals speeding past or driving past buses when kids are getting on. A couple of the locations, I think Chief Grinstead has already done an analysis. There's 3 or 4 locations that seem to be a lot of repeat offenders. So we're going to put some police officers in that area. It's not about making money or writing citations. It's about safety of our children, safety of our youth. So that's one of the things we're going to be focusing on. And I would just ask, as we get back to school, just be cognizant. The yellow buses are out there, and kids out getting on and getting off. So I'm just asking that the residents here and citizens in Newport News, that we watch out for each other, and for the youth of this city, and that you would help us just make sure that we're not passing those buses. Jamie, I'm going to scroll back, and did I miss any of these early comments? Good morning, Chief Drew. Good to see you. Parker, it's good to have you on board, my friend. Thank you. Folks, phones, Dee Dee, good to have you. Cameron, I appreciate the cameras being put on buses, child safety. Yep, no doubt, absolutely. I think it's going to make a big difference. But again, I don't want to see anybody get hit with a heavy fine, but I do want to make sure that we don't have any children hurt. And it's just a way to slow down, be aware. But the buses are all with cameras now, and it's a good way for us to enforce that people just slow down and stop. Let individuals get on the bus and let the young people get off, and then we'll be on our way. Jonathan, it's good to have you on board. Thank you. Elizabeth, thank you. Are there shifts with police? So Elizabeth, if I'm reading that correctly, and if you're asking me, there's shifts. So some departments do 12-hour shifts. So there's 24 hours in a day. Some departments do 12-hour shifts, a day shift, and then a night shift. So one gets off, the other one comes on. 12 hours is a long time to work, especially if you get hung up on a late call. Then you try to get 6, 7, 8 hours worth of sleep. If you have to go to court in the morning, that's rough. Some departments who do 12-hour shifts rotate. Some do permanent. We do 10-hour shifts in Newport News. So there is a day shift. Then there's a little bit overlap between our day shift and our evening shift. Evening shift gets off around 1 and 2 in the morning. And then there is a big overlap between 5 o'clock when our evening, from, let's see, I guess, around 9:30, there's an overlap till about 1 or 2 in the morning when our evening and midnight shift together. So there's 2 times where we have extra officers on the street. So with that, we work a 4 days on, 3 days off, and we have a schedule that allows officers to be off either a Saturday or a Sunday. Now, the reason we did that, we looked at some different schedules, but the reason we did that is because officers are in court so much, maybe not just on their own cases, but cases that they support, or they're a backup officer on, or they were at a scene. Workplace balance is important to me. And if I make sure that every officer is either off on a Saturday or a Sunday, there's no court that day, right? So that's one day with their family. They can worship, breathe, and they wouldn't have to go to court on that day. But it's important that they get that break. So that's we do have shifts. We have a day, evening, and midnight shift, and we work 4 10-hour days, and then we have 3 days off. That's a great question, Elizabeth. Thank you. Ann, hello. How are you guys? Ann, we're doing well. One of the things we look at is we've got a couple good things going on. We have an academy that's getting ready to graduate on next Thursday, the 25th, at 10 a.m. 16 brand new officers, brand new recruits will walk across the stage. I'll have a few words for each one of them personally, and then their family members will pin a badge on them. They've been in school for about 7 or 8 months. We extended this academy. We added a couple different classes. I think that's important. Some classes on communication, some classes on de-escalation. There were some things I wanted to add starting with this class. So they'll graduate. We have a class that just started in February of 24, and we're now beginning to hire for the academy class that will start in May. So right now, we are about 2 or 3 officers short of where we need to be. So we've been very blessed. God has really blessed us with staffing, with individuals wanting to come here. The other thing we have is we just had a 911 dispatch graduation. 13 dispatchers just graduated their academy that are starting now. Our number one priority, if you go back and look at some of the old recordings, the number one priority that we had in 2020 was to fully staff our 911 dispatch. Those individuals, I had been working way too hard. They were short. They were working long days, having to work mandatory overtime, coming in on their days off. We wanted to fully staff that, and on December 22nd, we did. So they're back to their normal shifts, but we were about 20 dispatchers short. And Fran and Laura and Stacy and former Chief Hudgens and Chief Creswell worked really, really hard, and they fully staffed. We just had their graduation a couple days ago, last Friday, I believe, right, Jamie?
Yes.
And 13 graduated, so I'm excited to have them on board. So we're doing well. We're very, very blessed. I'm going to talk about the crime numbers in just a second. Christine, any information on suspects in the shooting of the U.S. Navy airmen in late February? So, Christine, we do have some leads. Wait a minute. I think there's some leads, but I don't want to go too much into that. I want to make sure we're talking about the same case. So far this year in our city, we have had 4 homicides. 3 of those 4 have been cleared by arrest. So we've made some really good progress there. We're working really well with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. Crime in our city is down just about 28%. So I know we're only still in the first quarter, right? January, February, March. But overall crime, if we report it out to the FBI today, we're down about 28%. We ended with a 14% reduction in crime last year. The year before that, we were down 9%. And the year before that, in 2018, we were down 5%. So if we were looking at a bar graph, 5% decrease in crime compared to 2017, then a 9% reduction in 2019, and we were down about 14% in crime last year. So right now, being at 28%, that trend is going the right direction. And I know that we're only 2.5, 3 months into the year. But we look at our crime numbers every Monday, and we look at them every Thursday. Now, I know that every one of those numbers, every one of those incidents is an individual. It's a neighborhood, a community. I don't lose track of that. But I do look at the numbers to be data-driven and evidence-based. I don't want to just put officers somewhere because we think something might happen. I want to be able to say that we are seeing crime in this neighborhood, in this community. We're seeing crime in this time frame. This is where we need to be. This is where I'm having traffic accidents. This is where I've had shootings. This is where I'm having robberies. Those are areas and I want to see crime drop in those areas where we put our resources. So if I'm doing strategy A, B, and C and crime is going down, I'm going to stay with those resources and strategies. But if I'm putting initiatives and resources and strategies in areas A, B, and C and crime goes up, then I've got to tweak things. If I stay the same and I just see crime continue to rise, I'm not being effective. So that's the reason, for me, it is very, very hard to manage something if you can't measure it. I need to know that we're being effective in what we do, that we're serving our citizens, that we're reducing crime, that we're addressing crime, that we're solving cases that are open. So, so again, just hitting on that, right now, the city sits at about a 28% decrease in crime from where we were this time last year. Richard, good to have you on board, my friend. Thank you. Jasmine, Jefferson and Mason Drive, they never stop, only when the police is out here. Jasmine, you're exactly correct. There's some things that we're working on there. It's very astute. You're locked in. You're absolutely correct. And we're working on some things there, but I know exactly what you're referring to, and you're exactly correct. Ella, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Anthony, good morning from Winchester. Well, Anthony, good morning. I appreciate. Well, Anthony, look, it's 12 noon here, my friend, right? So it's noontime. I was early today too, Anthony. I don't know if you caught that earlier. I was early. Usually I'm about 5 or 10 minutes late, but not today. Elizabeth's just with the police, so we covered that. Okay, good.
She said to disregard her second.
Okay. Deborah, thank you for being here this morning. Gary, thank you for yeah, Gary, his 5th birthday. I understand it was a big success. I saw some photographs. It looked like you were having as much fun as everybody else was, my friend. I know the officers did. I saw some emails about it, and so I was glad that we were able to see there, to get there and see Lewis, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Is that his grandson's name? Yeah. I saw some of the emails from the officers, and I was glad we were able to do that. Sometimes it's hard with calls for service and resources, but we were able to make that one, and well, good deal. I'm glad you had a good time. Are you guys getting more new Ford Police Interceptor utilities? So, Cameron, if you're talking about vehicles, we're kind of moving towards to staying with the SUVs type vehicles. That kind of sees the trend right now. We do have some We do have some Dodge Chargers. They put a hold on them for a little bit as they're doing some tweaks. So we always kind of look though at different dealers and what's out there and what's open. But right now the SUVs are kind of what we're still kind of moving towards the most. Deborah, crazy comment, but I've seen many departments do the get up challenge. When are you going to see ours? So Deborah, get up challenge. So all I know right now is Jamie's shaking her head at me. So I'm not even going to ask what that is, right? The report I read. Academy right now, but are getting ready to graduate. Those 24 will graduate in August, and then we'll start academy in May as well. Are the recruits being trained on how to handle mental illness encounters? Parker, that's a great question. They do. We actually we spent some money to bring in some experts this year on a couple different courses. We added a whole week in the academy about so the state mandates so much for every across the country, across the state of Virginia. DCJS, Department of Criminal Justice Services, mandate that these classes and these hours must be taught for an officer to be certified in the state of Virginia. The Newport News Police Department goes well above that. We've focused on classes on autism, mental illness. We brought in an expert to teach what we call critical incident training, CIT training. We've brought in experts to teach on what we call de-escalation or implicit bias, that we all are human, that we all have biases, and teaching us to recognize them and prevent them from allowing us to use those biases when we do our job, and to try to do our best to treat people fairly. But I have to say this, Parker, on when you talk about mental illness, I will train them as much as I can in the academy, but people go to school for years on how to address mental illness, right? So it can't just be, so often we see situations that, you know what, let the police do it, they're there 24 hours a day. But I can't teach officers enough on how to focus on all the issues that surround mental illness, right? We have a human services department in our city services, right, that help us with that. Or I should say we help them. But I give them training, but at the end of the day, we're still trying to find ways. We have a program getting ready to start, I think, in April, where officers, you hear so much first responders, right? So someone who has mental illness, an officer responds, and sometimes that may escalate things. So we're trying to take a step back and become second responders, if you will. And we have a CARES program that it's all been signed off on and funded. It's putting an officer in the hospital, and it's having paramedics and clinicians ride together to respond to mental illness calls where there's no acts of violence. But officers will also respond, but we'll kind of be in the background. I just reviewed the use of force incidents for the month of February, and we only had 4. But I will tell you, 2 are domestics and 2 are mental illness, where an individual was fighting with neighbors or throwing trash on one of the neighbors' cars. One of them attacked his mother and attacked the officer when the officer got there. We have some history with one of those individuals, but it is very, very hard. So do we have training? Yes. Do I think it's enough? No. Do I think other agencies, other entities, other resources need to absorb that? Yes. And I think that's what we're trying to do when we talk about reimagining law enforcement today. How do we do things better? And it can't be that we'll just give it to the police department. We'll just give it to law enforcement. Whether it's issues with homelessness, drug addiction, mental illness, autism, I think we play a role, but I don't think we should be the primary role. Someone or some entity has to take the lead. And oftentimes, by default, it becomes the police department. That is a great question. I appreciate you bringing it up. We talk about that a lot in how do we do better. And I will tell you, I want to thank our city manager and our mayor, our city councilman for approving that budget. So we have this new program starting. It should be up and running in April. Our piece is already there. We're going to get the clinicians in the fire department, the paramedics on board, and we should be up and running. So we'll have a vehicle that's marked that says CARES on it. So I'm excited. I think it's a step forward. Is it going to fix everything? No. Is it 24 hours a day? No. But it gives us a step forward to evaluate, is this something that can work? We've looked and modeled after some other departments, other cities that have done something similar. So I'm excited to have it here in Newport News. Lopez, any new information on the Liz Marie Cannon case that can be released?
And she did an update. There was a typo. It's the Kaba. Her last name's Kaba.
Yeah, no. There's nothing that I can release at this time. I can't put that information out right now. It's a good question. I can tell you there has been progress made, but I can't go into what that is. But that's a very good question. Albion, good afternoon, Chief. Keep up. Albion, I appreciate you being on board. Thank you so much for being here and all the work that you do in our city and with this department. Thank you for the help and stuff that you've done for helping us with leadership. Let me just stop there for a minute. I'll go back to some previous questions about training. And I can tell you when I started, I'm going to date myself, but when I started 28 years ago, when I went to the academy, everyone that got up and instructed as a new recruit were individuals wearing a uniform or police officers. And I think as we move through that and we start to look at, we've been doing it for a while, but I think there's room for more, to bring in outside instructors, professionals, right? So it's one thing if I stand in front of a class and I talk about autism, or if I have an officer that talks about autism, and we teach from a PowerPoint. But how powerful is it to bring in a mother whose child is autistic and talk about things that happen, things whether it's lights or noise that may excite someone or set someone off. So an officer gets to a scene and we see this behavior and we think something's bad's happened, but it could just be someone scared. The flip side of that is officers don't have a crystal ball. We're not able to see into the future about, well, why does this happen? So we have to calm things down and then try to understand what's going on. The sooner we can do that, the better we all are, but it takes a little bit. So sometimes we go to a neighborhood and an individual might have some type of reaction. The neighbors might know that, but we don't, right? So we try our best to de-escalate and address things. But I bring all that up to talk about the value of bringing outside experts in, whether it is church groups, individuals who have people in their family that are autistic. That we talk to our day reporting center about issues with homelessness, so we understand it better. We've hired 2 civilian domestic violence coordinators here in this department, advocates, right, for domestic violence, that teach us about how to address issues with domestic violence. So we worry about, well, who's the aggressor, what are the signs, who was struck, who's being arrested. But they say, wait a minute, before you do all of that, if you want people to cooperate with you, how an officer carries him or herself when they walk through the threshold of the front door sets the whole tone. So often, well, why don't you leave? And, some of those questions can set the victim, male or female, to shut down. So they really helped us not only with the proactive work they do in the community for talking and responding to victims who are struggling, or teaching in our academy, or teaching officers a better way to address things. So training is a big issue for me, big issue in law enforcement, and we've partnered with a lot of individuals, Alvian, Pastor Swan, and the Virginia Unity Project. We've met with them. We've had them talk to our recruit class. We've had them talk to our leadership team, and I just think that's important. I think opening our doors and being transparent and bringing different instructors in plays a big role as policing moves forward. The conversations that we have in our communities. If any of you have been around me in the last 2.5 years or heard me talk, I'm a big advocate for youth, regardless of what we do, whether it's an award ceremony or promotion ceremony or graduation ceremony, National Night Out, Police Memorial Week. We're going to have youth involved. We're going to have them read a poem, be our guest speaker. We have a young man who's in high school, who will be one of the guest speakers at our graduation coming up on the 25th. That's important. I'm trying to send a message to the citizens of Newport News that youth matter to me. It's our future. I'm trying to send a message to the youth of this city that they matter to me, that I care about them. I think they're some of the most talented people. We're very blessed in this city. But I'm also sending a message to this department, sworn and civilian both, who wear this uniform, that we are going to be community oriented and we're going to have a strong focus on our youth. I get calls sometimes, and Chief, can I meet you? I'd like to talk to you about a program. I'd like to talk to you about this idea, and that's all great. One of the times I'd like to meet is on Friday night. I'm not hard to find. And finally, last Friday, I was able to be there. That high school football is back. For even if it's a couple weeks, it's still back. So I'll invite people to come out to the high school football game. We're going to be out walking around, saying hi to the people in the stands. But I just want the youth of this city to know that I support them. I know we were all young at one time. I was young at one time, a long time ago. People helped me and mentored me and looked out for me and had stern talks with me. But I think it makes a difference, and I want us to play that role. So I say all that. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, but I appreciate Alvin for you being here. Ms. Lopez, she does deserve justice, and you're absolutely correct. I'm right there with you. Ms. Downey, saw a picture of Chief Grinstead. He's looking quite silver in the facial hair. Ms. Downey, let me tell you, I'm glad you said it. I tease him all the time. Like he shaves it, he lets it grow, and I tease him about dying, and he's like, nope, he's proud of it. Chief Grinstead has served this city for well over 35 years. He has a wealth of knowledge. He's grown up here. He lived here. He's buried his parents here. He has been a tremendous asset to this city and in this department, and we're lucky to have him. But I'm glad you're teasing him, because I'm like, Jamie, is there a way to pull that picture out and just send it to Chief Grinstead? But that's great. And I want to thank you for taking the time to point it out today. Ms. Brewer, thank you for being here. I appreciate that. You paused. I did not get to hear your answer.
About the Get Up Challenge.
Oh, Deborah, you still talking about the Get Up Challenge? Didn't we get past that? So
she said she didn't hear you.
Let me be clear. I have embarrassed myself enough. I'm not saying we won't do it. I just got to take a look at it and make sure I understand it. Jamie is laughing at me and shaking her head, so I got to do a little bit of background on exactly what you're asking us to do. Elizabeth, thank you for taking the time to tell us. My husband wants to know if anything to prepare. Let me read that. My husband wants to know if anything to help prepare to get on with the police department. So, Elizabeth, first of all, we are hiring. We hire all year round, and we'll even hire before the academy starts. Well, one of the things when we talk about reimagining how we do law enforcement, we're reimagining and reform, doing things better. It's not just how we interact with people on the street. It's also our internal processes, right? What are we looking at that we have done the same since 1985 and we need to change? So before, at times, we would have an academy and we would hire, and maybe someone applied in January. We said, all right, the academy starts in I don't know, April, and we'll get you in when the academy starts. Well, that's 4 months of lingering out there. What could happen, right? Someone lose interest, they get on with another police department. No, when we hire here, we bring you on board early. We allow you to work in other entities, other police department, whether it's detective division, records, recruiting, whatever it might be. And then when the academy starts, that's when the training starts. But I'm not going to have people floating around, good, talented people out there. We want to bring you on board, let you start and get acclimated to the inner workings of the department, community service, customer service. So if he's looking at joining the department, I think we have a lot to offer here. We have a lot of different divisions, a lot of different units. I think we have some of the best, if not the best, training academy on the East Coast. And I've worked in a couple different departments and been around several. Matter of fact, I'm so committed to training that I just authorized another individual to be assigned to the training division. So they'll do interviews and a selection will be made. But I am not only training our new recruits and our in-service, but coordinating training that we do with outside entities as well, bringing instructors in. I thought it was important enough to have another individual help coordinate all those things because we're very focused on training.
She said disregard.
Faith, good afternoon, Chief Drew from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Keep up the awesome. Well, Faith, what is going on in Fayetteville? I'm glad you joined us today. I appreciate that. I have to come down. I've spent some time in Fayetteville before. I worked with some officers before that have been from Fayetteville, so I hope things are safe there. It's a little chilly up here today, this week. I don't know about this winter front. Last week it was warm. Today I walked out and had to put a winter coat on. What's going on? Where can I find more information on the CARES? So the CARES Act. So what we're doing with that again is it's 3 different entities working together. Really 4 if you count Riverside, where we have an officer stationed, dealing with individuals that are have some mental illness issues, right? That are struggling with mental illness, and then it's officers falling in to be the second responders when we can, and then having the first responders be that paramedic, the medical side of the house, and the clinician, the behavioral side of the house. It probably will be up and running about the first week of April. We have the vehicle, we have the manpower, just some training that has to take place on some other entities' side. But it's kind of like the Cahoots program that's up in Seattle and Portland area. Chief Hudgens, before he left here to be the chief in Pineville, North Carolina, he did a lot of research, and so that's kind of what we molded it and modeled it after. My hope is that it expands, so I'm really excited to get it up and running. I think our city manager and our mayor and city council had a lot of foresight in funding that. And believe me, they're ready for it to be up and running, and I just got to get those other entities, we're ready to roll. So, but that's kind of what we have at this point, and we'll do more release when they actually get wheels to the ground and we're going on calls. But I'm hoping that first week of April will be good to go. But Tim, I really wish the police would do more to enforce headlight laws. A lot of folks either drive around with no headlights, one headlight, or have high beams on, making it very dangerous. Tim, it's a very good point, but I will tell you the other side of the house will say we'd rather police not do so much traffic enforcement. Why are you doing so many traffic stops? But you're right. So we don't. In my response is, we can do the traffic enforcement without always having to issue a traffic ticket. We have a very good traffic division, and I think our officers do well with that. But I hear you clearly. I will tell you, we've had 2 or 3 really bad accidents here lately in the last 5 or 6 days. with individuals and children being taken to the hospital that were injured. So traffic enforcement is something that's very important to me. We created a traffic division in March of 2020. It consists of everything's staffed the way it should be, 4 officers in vehicles, and it will be 4 officers on motorcycles. So it's a sergeant and those 8, and then we move them around where we see our high accidents, speeding, and those type of violations. We even do some traffic checkpoints. So that's a great point, and I'll pass that on to the guys to keep a heads up about. But thank you, Anthony. Used to be an EMT, 30 years in New York. Wow, thank you. What was it? 9/11. Wow, Anthony, thank you for your service, my friend. Wow. Dealing emotionally disturbed, mental illness was never easy in the field. Compassion and trying to keep from hurting themselves and others. Hard job for police to deal with. I think you all are great, doing great. Anthony, I appreciate that. It's funny. I was just looking at. We have a use of force review board, 4 officers and 4 citizens, and we have them together. There is no tiebreaker, right? If it's a tiebreaker, we're sending it to Internal Affairs and Commonwealth Attorney's Office. But 4 citizens, 4 officers. We meet monthly, and we look at the use of force incidents from the month prior. So this month, in March, we'll be looking at the use of force incidents in February. We had 4. They just told me as I was walking down here to see Jamie and get set up that we had 8,000 calls for service. That means 8,000 times we came in contact with a citizen. Out of those 8,000 times, 4 times we had to use force, meaning our taser, aspeton, some type of tackle or physical takedown, break up a fight. At some point we had to use force. One of those was an individual who had some mental illness who attacked his mother. When we got there, they turned the attack on the officer, and then other officers responded. But once things were calmed down, we understood that the individual had some mental illness issues. So you are exactly right. It is very, very challenging. So we have tried to do some things in training to de-escalate. And when I talk about de-escalate, so many people look at that as on the front end, but I'm also want to de-escalate on the back end. Once the individual is detained or in custody, that an officer explains to them, this is nothing personal. We got a call, you got a warrant on file, individuals saw a fight, your acting behavior was concerning, you saw in the middle, whatever it might be, is to de-escalate that on the back end as well as the front end. But it is very challenging. But Anthony, before I go to the next post, I want to say thank you for what you did in New York, and certainly around 9/11. That's things that we'll never forget. And I appreciate your service, my friend. I got to go over and see him. I'm the one. Oh yeah, you were a high school resource. I was telling him the last time we talked, so he was very familiar, and I think you should. I think you should. I know. Well, I don't know. He may have had that when he was a resource officer, but I doubt it. Annette, good afternoon to you. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate you. Have a great, blessed day going back to virtual elementary school. Enjoy, Deborah. Be safe. Prince, it's good to have you on board. Thank you, my friend. Roderick. Mr. Barnes, thank you, sir. It's good to see you. Thank you. I appreciate you being here. Am I all caught up, Jamie?
You are.
So, again, I do appreciate each person that's logged in and there's been some really, really good questions. Greg, Mr. Hunter, it's good to have you on board. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. We talked about our crime stats, and we talked about our graduation. We talked about the class that's in now that started in February. So they've been in about a month. They came in about February 15th, 16th. Dispatch graduation. We talked about the cameras on the buses, some things we're trying to do. This year, we are really focusing on technology. There's a couple things that we're trying to implement into the police department. One is a real-time crime center that we're able to do things to work smarter. Another is to issue each officer a cell phone. A little bit behind where I'd like to be with that. All the apps that are coming out with language translations, GPS data, and information that I can get out to officers right away. So if an officer is in their vehicle, on their computer in their car, or they're in the roll call or in the station precinct, but they're not there a lot. This way I can reach them when they're on or off duty, the information I can get to them directly. So there's just so much developing in technology. That's where our focus is. I'm really, really excited. I met with the city manager and we've had our budget meeting. I'm really excited to hear what they will fund and what they're willing to do, but I think it's going to be very, very successful. We talk about, again, reimagining and refocusing on improving law enforcement. I think that technology plays a large role, and there's some things that we can do smarter, and there's a lot of technology out there, software that makes sure that different entities are talking together, sharing information with other resources, right? Resources like human services, where we deal with homelessness and drug addiction and individuals that have mental illness, that systems talking to each other. So I'm really, really excited to have that opportunity. Karen, how is the speaker system working on the gunshot locations? So ShotSpotter is going very, very well. That is a very, very expensive piece of equipment, but it's been very, very beneficial. We've been able to learn a lot of things. We've been able to respond, and I think as to date, there's been about 8 times where we've made an arrest from the ShotSpotter activation. So if you're not familiar with that, ShotSpotter is located in a particular area of the city. It triangulates gunfire. It can tell the difference between different calibers of firearms. It can tell the difference between a firearm and fireworks. And it triangulates that. It puts a point. So the sad thing is sometimes when there's gunfire, people don't call at all. And that worries me because it's either they didn't hear it, but more than likely I'm afraid that, well, somebody also called, or you know what, that's common. That just happens here. And I don't want that to be the case. But I believe 8 times since we've implemented ShotSpotter, officers get that on their phones if they have them, on their computers in their car, and it tells us where that shot's coming from, and officers can go directly there. If I live in the 100 block of P Street and I hear gunshots, sound travels, that vibration travels. So the gunshot may actually be in the 200 block of P Street, but someone calls in the 100 block, we drive to the 100 block. We may drive right past the 200 block going to the 100 block, right? The ShotSpotter, that technology locates where those shots actually come from. And it has been very, very, very positive for us of individuals in the act or being able to prove or disprove if someone says, oh, I was shot in this area and there's no activation. It gives us a line of questioning that, are you sure you were shot there? Let's talk about something else. And most times they will, hey, I had a self-inflicted gunshot wound by accident. So it has helped us in some cases, and it is as good a tool, technology, one of the better investments that we've made. It is expensive, but I believe it's played a large part in some of the reductions that we've seen. Miss Washington, good. Wow, good to have you on board. Don't worry about being late, but guess what? I was on time today, so don't worry about it. I know how you feel, but no, it's good to have you on board, and thank you. Is there a new police chief in Hampton? I know they missed Brother B.J. Roberts. I've heard some disturbing news about HCPD.
I think that's
Hampton Police
Division.
So, Mr. Barnes, my Chief Salt, who is the current chief there, has announced his retirement. He announced his retirement at the beginning of the year. We had some conversation, and as their city goes forward, I understand they have a process. I have not been involved in that, but I understand they have a process. I'm sure they will do a thorough job in their selection, and whoever that individual is, male, female, local or out of state, however that works out. I look forward to working with the chief in Hampton. The boundaries, a lot of our issues bleed over, and a lot of their issues bleed over. There's a lot of cross-pollination, right? So whoever that individual is, my commitment is to continue our work in collaboration with the Hampton Police Department. And I would assume, I'm totally, but I would say in the next couple months, they'll look to have a new chief in place. I think that was kind of, if my memory's correct, the time frame that Chief Salt had told me. So that's a great question. It's a great question. Ms. Spratley, he was a great guy. Oh,
Yeah, B.J. Roberts.
So I've got so one of the reasons Jamie's here is she kind of tells me, hey, look, those two are talking to each other, not asking you a question. So Ms. Spratley almost threw me off, but Jamie got me back on board. And that the sad as people become, and that it is. And I'll tell you, one of the things we look at, especially where we have shot spotters, that system is when we get a activation, I will ask, did anyone also call the police? And you would be surprised if sometimes they don't. And that does concern me. And it's exactly what you said. It's desensitization to it. that they hear it and, hey, somebody else is going to deal with it, or it's just common here. And I do not want that to be how we feel in this city. We have got a good reduction of crime. We're working on 18, 19, 20. This will be, God willing, this is going to be our 4th year of crime reduction. I don't want people to accept that, right? And I understand frustrations, but the minute we give up, that's not the direction I'm going, right? We have to keep pushing forward. We have to stay in the fight, right? Mr. Robbins, the stats and crime reduction percentage yet year over year helps me inform. Wait, am I reading that wrong?
Mhm.
The stats and crime reduction percentages year over
Year to year.
year.
Yeah.
Okay, helps me inform my own out of town military clients as well as misconceptions. Wow, Mr. Robbins, I really appreciate that. You know, I say it's funny, but it's really not. When I have meetings, you know, before the pandemic hit, one of the questions I would really enjoy asking individuals is, how many homicides do we have in our city? And I would hear things like 75, 125, 300. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, this is Newport News, right? Not insert another, whatever. But this city has never had over 33, 34 homicides. Looking back over the last, we do an annual report. I try to look at snapshots over about 5 years. Our shootings, not deaths, right? Someone shot in the arm, the leg, stomach, wherever, winged in the finger. Our shootings were the lowest in 2019. They were the lowest in 2019 since they'd been in since 2012. And we had 79 shootings in 2019, and we had 81. It was 2 higher in 2020. We're in 2021 now. So yeah, so 2019, it was just 2 higher. Before that, we were seeing numbers, if you go backwards now, 96, 98, 116, 120. We've seen those shootings come down. Our homicides, 26, 24, 25, 25. Some, we had one got added on to last year that was deemed a homicide after the autopsy and a little bit more investigation. But overall crime, when we talk about overall crime, it's violent crime and property crime, and we add that together, right? So it's our robberies, our homicides, our aggravated assaults, which include our shootings, our auto thefts, rapes, larcenies, property crime, burglaries, homes being broken into, and I look back at the last 5 years, right, and I see this downward spike. And going back to 2018, a 5-year reduction in crime, a 9% reduction in crime. Last year we were down 14%, and today we're at about almost 28%. Now, I understand we're just in mid-March, we're coming up into the summer, but if those numbers were going in the opposite direction, we'd be having a different conversation. We can never rest and say, hey, we've got it licked. We have to keep pushing forward. The use of technology, better trained officers, making sure we're staffed. Leadership matters, having people in the right place, people taking ownership in their neighborhoods, officers giving direction and follow-up, and making sure we have the best practices in place. How do we continue to evolve, bringing outside instructors in? All those things matter. And that's just from the uniform side. It's not talking about our dispatchers getting good information, having good quality dispatchers in the way they're trained, the civilians that work around the clock, the assistants, the records management, our recruiters picking the best individuals to come to this organization. All those things play a role. Our community outreach, how we treat our citizens, how we interact with our youth, our partnerships with schools, all those things play a role. So if someone asks me, what's the one thing? You know, I think it's multiple. But our relationship with our citizens, I think, has been our biggest benefit. Our community policing programs and being open and transparent. I can tell you, we make mistakes. I make them every day. It is okay to say we're sorry. It's okay to admit that we got something wrong. And it thinks when that we dive that. I can tell you 15 years ago, 20 years ago, remember this statement? No comment, no comment, no comment. Our citizens deserve better than that. They deserve more than that. So I'm trying to be open and transparent as much as I can and listen to feedback. But I think that's how we all get better. Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to go off too much on that, but I really appreciate that question, that comment. car alarms, nobody, yeah, you're absolutely right, Ms. Downey, you're absolutely right. Christopher, it's good to have you on board. Thank you, my friend. Thanks for being here today. I ask that when I see the apps and they normally say no. I always say Chief Drew always wants us to call it. You're exactly right. The reason I want people to call is for a couple of reasons. One, that we can respond to it, but it also allows me to go back and look at the last 30 days. Where's the calls for service been? What are we seeing? What time frame? Well, it seems like we're really getting those calls between 8 and 12. So maybe that's the time to put some extra resources in that particular area. Uh, that helps us. It helps us gauge. So each one of those incidents play a role, and we talk about evidence-based and data-driven. I think that's very, very, very important. Do you have any trainings or education opportunities or community members looking for conflict resolution skills to use our homes or with our neighbors? Wow, it's a good question. I want to make sure I'm reading that right. Are you saying, do we have anything that we can give out that people could use in their home or in their own neighborhood? There's some things, you're going to get me in trouble. I haven't really shared with the department yet. So we have our precincts that are broken into sectors. And I think it's important for the community to know who their sector lieutenant is. Accountability is huge, it plays a large role. One of the things I'd like to do once this pandemic is lifted is have what we call a sector-based training day. So that we have community input. How cool would it be to have 50 or 60 citizens attend a training for 6 hours in the North Precinct, or citizens that live in the Central Precinct to meet your captain and your sector lieutenants, and the same in the South. And I will commit serving some type of breakfast and lunch. We'll probably skip on dinner. But to talk about and identify who the individuals are that you connect with. What are the issues that you see in your community? And if we could agree on maybe the top 3, maybe the top 5, but really the top 3, and we focus on those, right? We say, just like as we do a balanced scorecard and we set our goals, that if the community came together and helped us set goals for each individual precinct, which then of course become the goals of the department, but it keeps that captain, that lieutenant, and all the officers that respond to you and your neighborhood, as well as you and the citizens in that community that live in the North Precinct, everybody accountable to reach those 3 goals. Now, I know it's not 20 goals but look, if it's 3 things, whether it's dealing with abated property, dealing with abandoned vehicles, dealing with homelessness issues, when community and law enforcement come together, you can fix a lot of things. We can make a lot of progress. So we can share some of those things. When you talk about resolution skills, we can share a lot of things in those type of environments. But other than that, if you're looking for something individual, if you shoot us a call or give me a number, I could follow up with you and talk about some of the things we use and what we've tried to do and add.
She said she was talking about
Yes.
shots fired when
Yep.
telling people to call in.
Gotcha, Ms. Bradley. Yep. Anna, hi, Chief. How are you doing today? Thank you for all. Anna, thank you so much. I think you're coming to our Use of Force Review Board this month as a spectator. I think we've got a pastor coming as well. Let me just touch base on that for a minute. We have a Use of Force Review Board in our city. Anytime that we use force, I said before, ASP, hands, taser, OC spray, physical confrontation, right? If we're chasing someone and there's some type of tackle, scuffle, whatever, we do a use of force report. We generate that ourselves. We average about 7 or 8 a month, and then we bring a group together and we review them. So all 465 officers in Newport News have a body-worn camera. We show that body-worn camera footage. Not what some show, and I'm not blasting anybody, but I want to share this with you. Sometimes when you drive by, if you're going, and right, we all know that Newport News got 2 streets, Warwick and Jefferson, right? But when you drive by at 45, because I'm sure we all drive the speed limit, when you drive by at 45 miles an hour and you see 4 or 5 officers with 1 individual, and you take a picture of that, or someone takes a picture of that and says, oh, look, they're abusing someone. The reason there are 4 or 5 officers is we're trying not to hurt someone. When you see the body-worn camera footage, you will hear officers talk, calm down, relax, put your arms behind your back, whether someone has been intoxicated and they're resisting. We're not trying to fight with anyone. We're trying to get that individual handcuffed or calmed down. But you, in this use of force review board, you see the full body worn camera. The conversation that starts, the interaction, the conversation afterwards. And then they vote. And the vote, it's 4 officers and 4 civilian. And they vote on the actions by the officer were proper, reasonable, and in policy. The officers of the action were unreasonable. They were out of policy. The officer acted improper. Or the officer acted properly, but there's some things we could kind of may be able to look at that we could do better. Maybe waiting for a backup officer to respond. Maybe at a house that we go to has multiple, we go to weekly for drunken disorderly calls. But the individual who lives there, we have to wrestle with every time we go, that we find out that individual responds much better to female officers. Is that something we can do better? Is that an address that we could flag, that if we send officers to that address, make sure we send a female officer because it may calm him or her down? There is no tiebreaker. So if it is a tie, so if it was be 3 officers and 1 citizen, or 2 officers and 2 citizens, if it is a tie, the case goes back to the Commonwealth Attorney and to our internal affairs, and they look at the case. But I think it's important. So that's the board. I do ask that the citizens that serve on the Use of Force Review Board attend our Citizens Academy. We have about a pool of, I have to get the exact number from Anna, but probably about 300. But we have started, at the middle of last year, we started inviting citizens in to observe, not to vote, but to observe, so they see the transparency. And I'm doing that to be open. There's a lot of talk about citizen review boards, and there's a lot of talk about officer review boards, and there's a lot of talk about chiefs making the final decision. I don't think it can be all officers, and I don't think it can be all citizens. If we're going to have unity, we're going to have to collaborate. We have to work together. I think this Use of Force Review Board is a model. It's really good. And afterwards, I go around and ask, how did you feel about what you saw? How did you feel about the way the officers talked? What did you think about the way the citizens responded? For me, in this department, I feel it's been very beneficial. I don't know if people out there that are watching have served on it, but it was.
Comment about it.
I am very, very glad to have that process here. Yes, I'd love to be part of supporting you and that initiative. You sent the phone number, perfect. I would also, Parker, I would also like to be involved in the South Precinct. Yeah, I think that's great. So I can tell you, I haven't really shared that with them. It's a concept I've been thinking about. Jamie's looking at me with these big eyes, like, what are you talking about? But I think it's important. I know it's hard, but think about if we had a location, maybe a school cafeteria, we put a slideshow together, and you met the leadership of that precinct, you met the officers of that precinct, we talked a little bit, and I'm not trying to, I don't want to lecture, it's got to be give and take. But if we broke groups down, this is the area of town I live in, and these are the issues. And I bet if you had 25 people, you'd probably get 25 different issues. That if those 25 could select 3 that are the most important, and we focused on those 3 in every precinct, that's huge. That's progress, right? And it's accountability for the officers and the community to work on those 3 issues together. But yeah, I would, that's something I'd really like to see us do here. We just got to get through this pandemic. I know it's challenging, but we're getting there. We're making steps. The Use of Force Review Board is so educational to me. Ms. Bradley, I know you've served on it before, valued, and I really appreciate you doing that. And I'm glad to hear that because I think it is. I think it's valuable to the community, but it's also valuable to us. Think about 4 officers, 4 community members, 4 citizens of our city. You're going to ask different questions. And I think it's good for our officers to hear those questions citizens ask. We use some of those videos and show our recruit class what it's like. But I think that's important. We all learn from each other. It's very, very valuable and it's very, very appreciative. And I thank you for serving and those that have. So we're getting around 1 o'clock. If I hit all the questions, I missed anybody?
You got everything.
I just want to again say thank you for people that have been on today, spent time with me. We're going to do it again at 6 this evening. But I know we've come a long way in a year. This pandemic, just about all of us just about know someone who has suffered from COVID or God forbid has passed away. So I know times are hard. Difference in schools, students that aren't in their schools, and being able to interact with others, and some of the sports that have been cut back. I know it's challenging. Businesses that have closed down, where's the next paycheck coming through? Did the stimulus check come? And I know it's challenging. But I believe working together, we can get through this. I've seen a lot of amazing stories. My partnerships with the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, um, the United Way. There's a lot of good entities out there, different resources in the city working together to try to do the best we can to serve our community, this great city. And I appreciate you. Appreciate the citizens. I appreciate the men and women who come to work every day, who wear this uniform, put this badge on, sworn and civilian both, that miss time away from their families, that do this job. And it's easy to sit in a desk and look at a computer screen and make decisions and second guess and Monday morning quarterback, if you will, when things happen in split second decisions. And I think that sometimes that would be unfair. But we do the best we can. We're going to make mistakes. We learn from them and move forward. Not just our own mistakes. We look at what's going on around the country. How do we do better? But I appreciate men and women who give up their time to do a career of service. It is a very demanding job, but it's also very rewarding. So did I miss one, Jamie?
You did, one out two. This one.
Anthony. I'm sorry, Anthony. Chief, what are your feelings on civilians that have concealed carry permits? I have been a security guard in the past and have been concealed license since 2005. Now going after our guns and chopping the Second Amendment, Virginia, Richmond, Fairfax, Loudoun County. I remember, Anthony. I know there's a lot of talk about gun laws, and I've been to meetings and heard both sides. Let me just say this as we start to sign off here. My feelings. Here's my feelings. People sitting down in a room together and reasoning with one another, focusing on dialogue. People having conversations instead of confrontations. And what I believe in all of that, and just the things that you posted, that there is compromise everywhere. Individuals that have lost loved ones to gun violence or to school shootings or mass shootings, and individuals that that support and the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms in this country. So it is a tough question, but I believe that if we sit down and talk and reason together, we can come to a compromise. I'm sure people much smarter than me will make those decisions. Our elected officials that we as a populace elect to represent us. But I think it's one that warrants a lot of discussion, a lot of data, looking at what works and being realistic. It's a great post, Anthony. That's probably one of the more thoughtful ones that makes me sit back and think about. And I will tell you, in law enforcement, we talk about those things a lot. We talk about them a lot. Thank you, my friend. Roderick, thank you for being part of the communication develops unificate. I appreciate that, Roderick. Thank you, my friend. So look, I have held you guys about 5 minutes over. I apologize. I know that you have a lot better things to do than listen to me, but I appreciate you taking the time. I'll be back at 6 o'clock this evening, and we'll go from there. So I hope I didn't miss any questions. Sometimes when we look back through them, we find, we missed one here. I apologize if I did. I think some people sent us a couple phone numbers. Anthony, thank you. That was a great, that's a great question, and I appreciate that. Please be safe. Look out for one another. God bless you all, and we'll do this again this evening. Okay, take care.